7.4. Today we're defining requirements architecture. So previously, what did we do? We specified and modeled our requirements. So we kind of like designed what is it that we would want. After that, we verified that that's something that people can understand because we're verifying the requirements, but in truth, we're verifying the modeling of the requirements, right? Like, does this look good or not? And then after that, we validated them. We validated to make sure that these requirements are basically going to lead us in the direction that we want. Remember, we elicited information at one point, and then we created basically a management structure in order for us to keep testing, to keep working with the smaller things, which are basically requirements oriented. We created the strategy in order to kind of like build our solution, and the strategy includes our vision and what we want to get to. And so after validating that what we're working on is kind of going in that direction, now we kind of define them and we define the architecture of them. And what is the architecture? This is what we're going to dive into. So, what's the purpose of defining requirements architecture? Well, it's to ensure that the requirements collectively support one another and fully achieve the objective, which means they're falling in place in order to actually get to where we want to go. It's a strategy taking shape. Uh, the description. Requirements architecture is a structure of all the requirements of a change. A requirements architecture fits the individual models and specifications together to ensure that all the requirements form a single whole that supports the overall business objectives and produces a useful outcome for stakeholders. It really is telling your mom exactly, it's just giving your mom a Google Maps basically and telling her follow this map in order to get to the store instead of explaining to her go here and then left and right. Have you ever given directions before to somebody who's kind of like, yeah, I don't get it? So yeah, that's what we are. But anyway, so business analysts use requirements architecture to understand which models are appropriate for the domain, solution scope, and audience, organize requirements into structures relevant to different stakeholders, illustrate how requirements and models interact with and relate to each other, and show how the parts fit together to a meaningful whole, ensure the requirements work together to achieve the overall objectives, and make trade off decisions about requirements while considering the overall objectives. So, understand which models are appropriate for the domain. Uh, it's literally like, does what we're doing fit to where we're doing it? Because, like, when we say domain, and we're talking, there are domains of logistic, production, service, hospitality, industries as well. There are finance and all kinds of like different angles that you could actually work with. We use the architecture in order to understand if this modeling works. We use it to organize the requirements and actually like kind of compartmentalize them and give them a certain structure that flows moving forward. It illustrates how requirements and models interact and relate to each other. Yeah, well, because we model in order to connect the. uh, It's not one model that we're doing, right? Because like when it comes to the requirements, we might actually be doing multiple mini models for different parts, and then basically the architecture connects them together. You getting my drift? Because like if I'm working, I might need a model that is that salespeople can understand, and then I might need a model that logistic people would understand. Then I might need a model for like the management to understand, right? And then ultimately, architecture is kind of like making sure they connect with each other and trade-off decisions about requirements. That's basically like you highlight the strong points, the weak points, and all the things that back and forth that you kind of like are going to be interacting with and what could be your options before and after. So we already figured all of this stuff while we're eliciting, and we figured a lot of these stuff while we're creating the strategy. And while we're modeling, we kind of like, because at the modeling specifically, there's the when we're verifying and validating, we're kind of highlighting where we might be doing something off or we might make a mistake. So in the architecture, it kind of like fully gives us a structure of how we move forward or backwards. So requirements architecture is not intended to demonstrate traceability, but rather to show how elements work in harmony with one another to support the business requirements and to structure them in various ways. To align the viewpoints of different stakeholders, traceability is often used as the mechanism to represent and manage these relationships. Traceability, right here, and like it just proves that we're moving in the direction and kind of like highlighting what our thoughts are that led there. It's very important, I think, to do that because a lot of times we kind of like we're thinking in our head and we don't know how to we didn't necessarily document how we got to where we are. So sometimes we kind of find ourselves missing or lacking or just something. Sometimes we find ourselves like I know that because I program, right? Like because when you're in the flow of thoughts, you come up with the solutions. But then when you come back to yourself or when you get out of the flow, you're looking at the solution, it works, but you can't trace how you got there. So traceability kind of like proves how each requirement is linked to what's necessary. And this is what I highlighted right now. It's used as a mechanism to represent these relationships and how they kind of like are interlinked together. It does not really prove the solution, it just proves what you did and what you went through. What are the inputs? Information management approach, which is basically the origin. It's like the first thing you kind of like learn when you're working on business analysis is how to manage information. Uh, it reads requirements and the solution scope. And so here, basically, this is the architecture input output diagram. We start with requirements, information management approach, and the solution scope. And what we insert, and then we insert them into defining requirements architecture. Our output's supposed to be the requirements architecture itself done. And in the future, we will use these outputs in prioritizing requirements, assessing requirement changes, specify the model, and defining design options. We are going one chapter at a time, but I really want you to think of these chapters as kind of like a loop. So chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Eventually, you go back to chapter 1. Because what we're doing is we're going to be iterating on every new idea, every new thought process, every new model we do is going to affect where we go afterwards, and it's going to go back to the things that made us decide on that. So what are the elements, requirements, viewpoints, and views? Basically, a viewpoint is a set of conventions that define how requirements will be represented, how these representations will be organized, and how they will be related. Viewpoints provide templates for addressing the concerns of particular stakeholder groups. Viewpoints frequently include standards and guidelines for the model types. Viewpoints are theories, right? Like as in like, this is what people used to do before, and kind of like whatever you're doing, you kind of like have to play within those lines in order for you to kind of have a standard template, but still be able to uniquely do something on your own and organize based on what you think is right. It has model types used for your requirements. It has attributes that are included and consistently used in different models. Model notations that are used and analytical approaches used to identify and maintain relevant relationships among models. Great. So no single viewpoint alone can form an entire architecture. Each viewpoint is stronger for some aspects of the requirements and weaker for others. What are they pointing at here? Where are the viewpoints pointing out? The requirements viewpoints frequently include standards and guidelines for the models, for the attributes included, for the notations that are used. So these are kind of like, so they're telling us there are viewpoints towards every single step that we do. And examples of viewpoints include a business process model, data models, and information, user interactions, audit, and security. And kind of makes sense that the business process model viewpoints could be strong towards the business process model and not towards auditing and security, because we could use the same model probably when we're approaching auditing and security, but we probably would be better off using like templates that fits auditing and security. Right, it's the difference between using Excel sheets and like a different software, depending on whether you're approaching something accounting wise or auditing or finance or whatever. Right, like think of viewpoints as tools. Can we? I'm not sure. Each of those viewpoints has different model notations and techniques. Each is important to ensure a cohesive final solution. Sorry about the rain behind me, by the way. And the solution would likely not be success if the business analyst only looked at the business process viewpoint. Similarly, trying to put conventions from many viewpoints in one single viewpoint would make it overwhelming to analyze and contain information irrelevant to particular stakeholder groups. So ultimately, it's based on your own discretion, but like limits what you're trying to do instead of trying to do all of them and understand all of them, because you cannot like, I don't know, follow your intuition, I guess. Actual requirement and designs for a particular solution from a chosen viewpoint are referred to as a view. A collection of views make up for requirements architecture for a specific solution. Business analysts align and coordinate the structure requirements into beautiful views for the various stakeholders, right? Because here, what we're doing, don't forget that what we're doing is we're using these views as well as a way to explain and explore what we're trying to like elaborate on. So this set of coordinated and complementary reviews provides a basis for assessing the completeness and coherence of the requirements. In short, the viewpoint tells business analysts what information they will provide for each stakeholder group to address their concerns, while views describe the actual requirements and designs that are produced. Then we have template architecture as an architectural framework that's a collection of viewpoints that is standard across industry, sector, and organization. Yay. We can use these frameworks and we predefine templates and start from defining them. I talked about this earlier with literally just like find something that has been proven correct and then move forward from there. It's accurate because information is already populated in it, right? And then completeness. An architecture helps ensure that the set of requirements is complete. The entire set of requirements should be able to be understood by the audience. And remember, can be determined to the set is cohesive and tells the full story. No requirements should be missing from the set, inconsistent with others, or contradictory. Know what you're doing and do it properly. Relate and verify requirements relationships. Requirements may be related to each other. Amazing. Like actually create those connections in order for us to examine, analyze the requirements to define the relationships between them. The representation of these relationships is provided by tracing requirements, and business analysts examine each relationship to ensure the relationship satisfy the following quality criteria. The relationship defined? Yes. Is it necessary? Yes. Is it correct? Yes. So the elements do have a relationship described. Ooh. Is it unambiguous, as in like it's self-explanatory? I guess there's no relationships that link elements in two different and conflicting ways. And is it consistent, as in like we could actually intuitively build on top of that relationship in our future problem? In our future added value, preferences, whatever. Relationships are described in the same way using the same set of standard description as defined as the viewpoints. Anyways, and then point 5 is business analysis information. Relationships are described in the same way using the same set of standard descriptions as defined in the viewpoints. Yeah, consistent doesn't like it doesn't change from one side to another, right? Because you are approaching maybe similar relationships, but to different things. So the explanation has to have some form of standard, or else the people will have a lot of things to kind of like memorize, I guess, or understand. And your goal through architecture is to kind of like create an easier link between their ignorance and your brilliance. Wow, wow. Oh, business analyst, you. Business analysis information architecture, number 5, is basically a structure of the business analysis information is also an information architecture. This type of architecture is defined as part of the task plan, business analysis, information management. Information architecture is a component of the requirement architecture because it describes how all the business analysis information for a change relates, defines relationships for types and information such as requirements, designs, types, or models. The architecture is kind of like a combination of everything, right? It feels like it's the whole thing simplified, but it's actually like a bloated structure with even more concise descriptions for things and relationships. And here, they're even mentioning it here, basically. It is useful to start defining this architecture before setting up infrastructure such as requirements, lifecycle management tools, architecture management software, and document repositories. Like you start with the architecture in order for you to finalize kind of like what are the things you're using, you need, and all that stuff. What are the guidelines and tools? Architecture management softwares, legal regulatory information, methodologies and frameworks, blah blah blah. What are the techniques? Data modeling, functional decomposition, interviews, organizational modeling, scope modeling, workshops. Yeah, so like notice all of these kind of have a brainstorming effect towards them. Organizational modeling, like used to understand the various organizational unit stakeholders. Like you're really just connecting everything on one kind of like document or something. We need stakeholders as well. Everyone who knows anything about anything is basically a stakeholder. Domain subject matter expert, implementation subject matter expert, right? Like there are people that are into accounting and there are people that are into auditing, but all of them are kind of like under the same umbrella of like making sure the numbers don't fall away. So like you kind of have to do the same thing depending on what you're doing. And ultimately, like talking to actual people who like sponsor, tester, project manager, subject matter experts. Maybe it's just easier to go talk to a fucking business analyst who's done this before and they can give you a fucking template. Stakeholders, consultants, shit. What the outputs are requirements architecture. And here we go. Thank you very much. We finished chapter 7.4.